The bright lights in the sky appeared on a Tuesday morning in March 2157. People all over Earth stopped what they were doing and looked up. The ships were huge, bigger than any building humans had ever made. They hung in the air above major cities, like silver clouds that did not move. Admiral Daeho Kim was eating breakfast in his small apartment in Seoul when his phone started ringing. He had been expecting this call for 20 years, ever since he joined the Earth Defense Force. Every military officer dreamed of first contact with aliens, but nobody really thought it would happen during their lifetime. "Sir, we have 12 large ships in our atmosphere," the voice on the phone said. "They're not attacking, they're just waiting." Daeho put down his coffee cup and looked out his window. Above the city, he could see one of the ships. It was beautiful, in a way that made his chest feel tight. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. 3 hours later, the ship sent a message to Earth. It came in perfect English, Chinese, Spanish, and dozens of other languages. The voice was calm and friendly, like a teacher talking to young students. "People of Earth, we greet you in peace. We are the Galactic Council. We have watched your species grow and develop. You have impressed us with your creativity and your strength. We come to invite you to join our family of civilizations." Daeho found himself in a room with the most important people on Earth. President Martinez sat at the head of a long table, her face serious but hopeful. Next to her was Dr. Soo-Jin Park, Earth's best expert on alien life, even though she had never seen any real aliens before today. Across from them sat Woo-Bin Lee, a diplomat who spoke 7 languages and had spent his whole career preparing for this moment. "What do we know about them?" President Martinez asked. Soo-Jin opened her tablet and read from her notes. "The ships are made of materials we don't recognize. They use some kind of energy we can't detect, but they're talking to us like equals, not trying to scare us or show off their power." Woo-Bin nodded. "That's a good sign. If they wanted to hurt us, they probably would have done it already." But Hye-Wan Choi, who ran Earth's intelligence services, was not smiling. She had been quiet during the whole meeting, reading reports that kept coming in from around the world. "Something feels wrong," she said finally. "They know too much about us. They speak our languages perfectly. They know about our cities, our governments, our technology. How long have they been watching us?" The alien ships had been in Earth's sky for 6 days when they finally agreed to meet in person. The meeting would happen on a space station that the aliens built just for this purpose. It appeared in Earth's orbit overnight, a spinning wheel of crystal and metal that caught sunlight and threw it back in rainbow colors. Daeho led the human team up to the station. Soo-Jin came with him, carrying equipment to study alien biology. Woo-Bin brought gifts from Earth and documents that explained human culture and history. The first alien they met called itself Ambassador Veltar. It looked like a tall, thin human, but its skin was blue and it had 4 arms instead of 2. Its voice sounded like wind chimes when it spoke. "Welcome, friends from Earth," Veltar said. "We have waited so long to meet you properly." The meeting room was beautiful, with walls that showed stars and planets spinning slowly through space. Other aliens sat around a curved table. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange that Soo-Jin had to try hard not to stare. There was a creature made of living rock, another that looked like a giant insect, and one that seemed to be made entirely of light. "We are the Galactic Council," Veltar explained. 12 civilizations working together for peace and progress. We explore the galaxy, share knowledge, and protect younger species from the dangers of space." "What kind of dangers?" Daeho asked. The rock creature spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "There are species that destroy everything they touch. Pirates who steal resources and enslave populations. Natural disasters that can wipe out entire worlds. The galaxy can be a cruel place for those who face it alone, the light being flickered as it talked. But together we are strong. We share our knowledge, our technology, our protection. No member of the Council has lost a world to disaster or attack in over 1,000 years." Soo-Jin leaned forward. "What would membership mean for Earth?" "First, we would share basic medical technology," Veltar said. "Diseases that kill your people could become simple problems to solve. We would also give you better ways to grow food and clean your environment. Wu Bin looked interested. And in return, Earth would share its unique gifts with the Council. Your species is remarkably creative. You solve problems in ways we have never seen before. Your art, your music, your stories could enrich all of our civilizations. The meeting lasted for hours. The aliens seemed patient and kind. They answered every question and never seemed annoyed or rushed. They showed videos of their homeworlds, beautiful planets with clean cities and happy people. They explained how the Council worked, with each member species contributing what they did best. But Haiwan was still worried when the human team returned to Earth. While everyone else talked excitedly about the amazing opportunity, she sat in her office and studied every detail of what they had learned. Run deep scans on all the data they gave us, she told her best analysts. Check everything twice. If something seems too good to be true, it probably is. Her team worked for days, going through videos, documents, and technical specifications. Most of it seemed genuine. The medical technology worked exactly as promised. The environmental cleanup methods were brilliant. The star charts matched what Earth's telescopes could see. But there were small things that didn't make sense. The aliens talked about 12 member species, but Hwan could find evidence of at least 20 different civilizations in their historical records. When she asked about this, Veltar explained that some species had joined together, combining their cultures into single entities. It happens sometimes, the alien said. When two species are very similar, they choose to become one people. It makes them stronger. Haiwan nodded and smiled, but inside she felt cold. In her experience, when civilizations disappeared, it usually wasn't because they chose to merge with someone else. Over the next weeks, more meetings happened. Earth's leaders grew excited about joining the Council. The aliens were generous with their gifts and patient with human questions. They never pushed or demanded quick answers. They seemed perfect. Too perfect. Haiwan thought as she sat in her office late one night, staring at star maps that showed empty spaces where civilizations used to be. She had spent her whole career learning to spot lies and hidden dangers. Every instinct she had was screaming that something was wrong, but what could she do? Everyone else saw the aliens as humanity's salvation. Even President Martinez was ready to sign the agreement that would make Earth the newest member of the Galactic Council. Haiwan looked at her computer screen, where she had been trying to trace what happened to the missing civilizations. The official records said they destroyed themselves in wars or natural disasters, but energy readings suggested something else entirely, something much worse. 2 years had passed since Earth joined the Galactic Council. The aliens had kept their promises. New medicines cured diseases that had killed millions. Farms produced more food than ever before. The oceans were cleaner, and the air in big cities was fresh again. Most humans were happy with their new alien friends. Trade ships came and went from Earth regularly, bringing amazing technologies and taking away human art, music, and literature. The aliens seemed fascinated by everything humans created, but Haiwan Choi was not happy. In 2 years of investigation, she had found more questions than answers. 17 civilizations had vanished from the galaxy in the past 1,000 years. The Council had neat explanations for all of them, but the evidence didn't match their stories. She was working late in her office when the message arrived from Ambassador Veltar. The Council was inviting Earth's brightest minds to participate in something called the Cultural Exchange Program. 24 humans would spend 6 months on Nexus Prime, the Council's capital world. They would share human knowledge and learn about alien sciences. The list of chosen humans impressed even Hwan. Jinwoo Park was the youngest quantum physicist ever to win the Nobel Prize. Yuri Song had designed the military strategies that ended 3 regional wars without massive bloodshed. Time and Co. had created new medicines that could regrow human organs. It's an honor, President Martinez told the group when they met to discuss the program. They want our best and brightest to represent humanity. Jinwoo was excited. Think about what we could learn from 12 different advanced civilizations. The physics alone could advance human science by centuries. Yuri was more careful. Why do they want military strategists? I thought the Council was focused on peace. They want to understand all aspects of human thinking, Wu Bin explained. Your strategic mind is part of what makes humanity unique. Admiral Daeho Kim looked at the list of names. These people are irreplaceable. If something happened to them, nothing will happen to them, President Martinez said firmly. The Council has proven they're trustworthy. This is a chance to strengthen our alliance. But Haiwan noticed something others missed. The invitation was very specific about which humans to send. It wasn't random. The Council had requested people with particular skills: advanced physics, military strategy, biotechnology, computer science, and psychology. They wanted the people who understood humanity's most dangerous capabilities. 3 weeks later, Haiwan stood in the spaceport watching the transport ship disappear into the stars. 24 of Earth's most brilliant people were heading toward Nexus Prime. She had tried to voice her concerns, but nobody wanted to listen. The Council was humanity's great hope for the future. On Nexus Prime, Jin Wu stared out the window of his assigned quarters. The capital world was beautiful beyond anything he had imagined. Crystal towers reached toward purple skies, and flying vehicles moved silently between them. Gardens filled with alien plants created rainbow patterns across the city. Amazing, isn't it? Said Dr. Colven, the insect-like scientist who was Jin Wu's assigned guide. Nexus Prime is the result of 12 civilizations working together. Each species contributed their best architectural and artistic ideas. The exchange program started. Well, human visitors were given tours of research facilities, museums, and cultural centers. They met scientists from different species and shared knowledge about their respective worlds. Jin Wu found himself working with physicists who understood mathematics he had only dreamed about. Yuri was paired with the Council's military advisors, though they preferred to call themselves conflict resolution specialists. They were interested in her strategies for ending wars quickly and efficiently. Humans have an unusual approach to conflict, said General Zithmar, a tall alien with silver skin. Most species either avoid fighting entirely or destroy everything in their path. Humans find creative ways to win without massive destruction. We learned that destruction hurts everyone in the end, Yuri replied. It's better to find solutions that let everyone survive. But after 2 weeks on Nexus Prime, Yuri began to notice strange things. The research facilities had areas that visitors were not allowed to see. Security guards followed the human group everywhere. Always polite, but always present. And sometimes, late at night, she heard sounds coming from deep underground. Taemin was working in the biotechnology labs when he made the first real discovery. His alien colleagues were fascinated by human DNA, particularly by humanity's ability to adapt to different environments. Your species is remarkable, said Dr. Vexpol, a blue-skinned researcher. Most civilizations can only live on worlds very similar to their birth world, but humans could probably survive almost anywhere. Evolution made us adaptable, Taemin said. We had to survive ice ages, climate changes, and migrations across our planet. But when Taemin looked at the genetic samples the aliens were studying, he found something disturbing. They had DNA from dozens of different species, including some that were supposed to be extinct. The samples were labeled with numbers, not names, as if they were inventory items rather than the genetic heritage of entire civilizations. It was Yuri who found the way into the restricted areas. Her military training included infiltration techniques, and Nexus Prime security was designed to keep people out, not to keep prisoners in. Late one night, she slipped away from her quarters and followed the underground sounds. What she found made her stomach turn. Beneath the beautiful city was a vast complex of laboratories and holding cells. Behind bars made of energy fields were creatures from dozens of different species. Some looked healthy but trapped. Others appeared sick or injured. All of them looked terrified. Yuri moved deeper into the complex using skills she had learned during her military service. She found rooms full of computers storing biological data. She saw laboratories where alien scientists worked on genetic samples. And in the deepest part of the complex, she found the horror that explained everything. Entire sections were dedicated to studying dead civilizations. Each extinct species had its own area, with preserved bodies, genetic material, and detailed records of their societies, technologies, and cultures. The displays looked like museum exhibits, but they were really trophies. In one room, Yuri found records that made everything clear. The council didn't just invite species to join them. They studied new civilizations carefully, learned about their capabilities and weaknesses, and then slowly took control. Species that were useful were kept alive, but transformed into obedient servants. Species that were too dangerous or too independent were eliminated entirely. The process took decades or centuries. The council was patient. They would make contact, offer friendship and aid, gain trust, and then gradually increase their control. By the time a species realized what was happening, it was too late to resist. Yuri found files on Earth buried deep in the system. Humanity had been under observation for over 200 years. The council knew about human wars, human technology, and human psychology in detail. They had been planning Earth's integration since before humans developed space travel. But the most terrifying discovery was in the medical files. The treatments the council had given to Earth weren't just cures for diseases. They contained microscopic machines designed to change human brain chemistry over time. The process was slow, taking years to complete, but eventually it would make humans more obedient and less creative. Yuri realized she had to warn Earth, but first she needed proof. She began copying files onto a small device she had smuggled into the facility. As she worked, she could hear footsteps in the corridor outside. Subject: exhibits typical human curiosity patterns, a voice said. Increased surveillance is recommended. Yuri froze. They knew she was exploring areas she shouldn't be in. How long had they been watching her? How long before they stopped pretending to be friendly? She finished copying the files and carefully made her way back through the complex. The holding cells seemed even more horrible now that she understood what they meant. Every prisoner was the last survivor of their civilization, kept alive to provide genetic material and information about their extinct species. Back in her quarters, Yuri composed a coded message using techniques from her military training. She embedded the warning in what looked like a routine personal letter to her family on Earth. The message was simple but urgent. The council was not what they seemed. Humanity was in terrible danger, and Earth needed to prepare for the worst. As she sent the message, Yuri wondered if it would reach Earth in time. The council had been planning humanity's destruction for centuries. They were patient, intelligent, and completely ruthless. But they had made one mistake. They had underestimated what humans would do when they discovered the truth. Yuri smiled grimly as she prepared for what might be her last night of freedom. The council thought they understood human nature, but they were about to learn something new about her species. Humans did not surrender easily. The coded message from Yuri Song reached Earth on a Tuesday morning. Hyewan Choi was the first to decode it, sitting in her secure office 3 levels underground in Seoul. As she read the hidden text, her hands began to shake. "Get me, Admiral. Kim and Dr. Park immediately," she told her assistant. "Emergency priority. Code Black." Within an hour, Earth's top leaders were gathered in the same secure room where they had first discussed the alien visitors 3 years ago. This time nobody looked hopeful or excited. "Yuri's message confirms what I've suspected all along," Hyewan said, projecting the decoded text on the wall screen. "The Galactic Council is not our ally. They're our executioners." Admiral Dae-ho Kim read the message twice before speaking. "Microscopic machines in the medical treatments. Are you sure about this?" Dr. Soojin Park was already working on her tablet, pulling up medical data from the past 2 years. "It would explain some things we've noticed. Subtle changes in brain, chemistry among people who received the alien treatments. We thought it was just the medicine working, but it was actually changing how people think," Hyewan finished, "making them more trusting, less likely to question authority." President Martinez looked sick. "How many people have been treated with council medicine?" "Almost 2 billion worldwide," Soojin said quietly. "We thought we were saving lives." The room fell silent. 2 billion people were slowly being changed into something else, something more obedient. The alien plan was working exactly as designed. "There's more," Hyewan said. She pulled up star charts showing the locations of civilizations that had vanished over the past 1,000 years. I've been tracking energy signatures from these dead worlds. The official records say these species destroyed themselves, but the evidence shows something different. The chart showed a pattern. Each civilization had gone through the same process. First contact with the Council, a period of cooperation and technological exchange, then sudden silence. The energy signatures suggested massive weapons had been used, but not the crude nuclear or chemical weapons that most species developed naturally. "They're harvesting us," Admiral Kim said, understanding the implications. "They study each species, take what they want, and then eliminate the rest." Dr. Sujin Park had been quiet, but now she spoke up with a trembling voice. "I've been analyzing the genetic samples they requested from us. They said it was for medical research, but I think I know what they're really doing." She brought up a holographic display showing human DNA compared to samples from other species. "They're not just studying us, they're creating hybrid species, taking the best traits from each civilization they encounter and combining them into something new. New species that they control completely," Hyewan added. "Perfect servants with no memory of their original cultures." Admiral Kim stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see Seoul's skyline, where alien transport ships regularly landed and took off. For 3 years, humanity had welcomed these ships. Now he realized they were probably carrying human genetic material and cultural artifacts back to Council worlds. "How long do we have?" he asked. Hyewan consulted her analysis. "Based on the pattern from other civilizations, I estimate 18 months before they move from subtle control to open subjugation. Maybe less if they think we're becoming suspicious." "Then we need to start preparing now," President Martinez said. "But carefully. If they realize we know the truth, they might speed up their timeline." The next few weeks were the most dangerous in human history. While maintaining the appearance of normal cooperation with the Council, Earth's leaders began secret preparations for war. They couldn't trust normal communication channels, knowing the aliens monitored everything. Dr. Sunmi Kang, a neuroscientist who had been studying the alien medical treatments, made a crucial discovery. Working in a laboratory hidden beneath a hospital in Tokyo, she found a way to neutralize the microscopic machines in human blood. "The nanobots are designed to alter neurotransmitter production," she explained to the secret military council, "but they have a weakness. They're powered by specific minerals that don't exist naturally in human bodies. If we can flush these minerals from people's systems, the nanobots stop working." "How do we do that without the council noticing?" Admiral Kim asked. "We distribute the treatment as a new vitamin supplement," Sunmi said, "something that promotes general health. The council won't suspect anything until it's too late." Meanwhile, Captain Jae-sung Lim had been analyzing council ship movements around Earth's solar system. What he discovered was terrifying. The aliens had positioned massive vessels near every human colony world and space station. The ships were disguised as research stations or trading posts, but their energy signatures revealed hidden weapon systems. "They can destroy every human settlement outside Earth within hours," he reported to the War Council. "Our colonies, our mining stations, our research outposts, all of them are already targeted." But the most important discovery came from an unexpected source. Dr. Min Jung-han, a computer scientist who had been studying alien technology, found something hidden in the Council's communication networks. "They use quantum entanglement for instant communication across the galaxy," she explained. "But the system has a vulnerability. Every enslaved world is connected through neural implants in their transformed populations. If we could access this in-network, we could communicate with all the enslaved species at once," Hyewan realized. "Tell them the truth about what the Council did to them." Admiral Kim looked at the assembled group of scientists, soldiers, and intelligence officers. "So we have a way to neutralize their control over our people, evidence of their crimes, and a method to potentially start uprisings across their entire empire. But we need to rescue our people from Nexus Prime first," President Martinez said. "We can't abandon them. On Nexus Prime, Yuri Song was running out of time. The council scientists were becoming more suspicious of their human guests. Several of the visiting humans had been moved to private quarters that looked suspiciously like the holding cells in the underground complex. Jinwoo Park had managed to communicate with some of the other imprisoned humans using hand signals and coded messages. They all knew they were in terrible danger, but they also realized they had a unique opportunity. "We're inside their most secure facility," Taemin-ko whispered during a brief moment, when their guards were distracted. "If we can document everything and somehow get the information to Earth." "I've been copying their genetic databases," Jinwoo replied. "The quantum computers here have records of every species they've ever encountered, including detailed plans for what they intend to do with humanity." Yuri had been planning an escape route for weeks. The underground complex had maintenance tunnels that led to the spaceport. If they could reach a ship, they might be able to send a final message to Earth before the Council stopped them. But their time ran out faster than expected. Dr. Vex Pol, the blue-skinned researcher who had been working with Timon, arrived at Seoul. Their quarters with a full security escort. "I'm afraid there's been a change in the program," Vex Pol said with what might have been a smile on his alien features. "Our research has reached a new phase. You'll be moved to more specialized facilities, where we can continue our studies." Yuri knew what that meant. The Council was done pretending to be friendly. The human visitors were about to become permanent test subjects, just like the other prisoners in the underground complex. As the guards escorted them through the crystal corridors of Nexus Prime, Yuri caught Jinwoo's eye and nodded slightly toward a maintenance panel they were passing. He understood immediately. If they were going to die anyway, they might as well try to escape and take as much information with them as possible. The next few minutes would determine whether Earth received the intelligence it needed to fight back, or whether humanity would face the Council's assault blind and unprepared. Yuri smiled as she prepared to put her military training to its ultimate test. The Council thought they had captured Earth's brightest minds to study and dissect. They were about to discover that human intelligence came with a survival instinct that they had seriously underestimated. The war for humanity's future was about to begin, and it would start in the heart of the enemy's greatest stronghold. The escape from the Council facility happened faster than anyone expected. Yuri Song waited until the guards were turning a corner, then struck with the speed and precision that had made her Earth's youngest military strategist. Within seconds, 2 alien guards were unconscious and she had their weapons. "Move," she whispered to Jinwoo and Taemin. "The maintenance tunnels now." They ran through corridors that had seemed beautiful just hours before, but now felt like the walls of a trap. Behind them, alarms began to sound throughout the complex. The Council had finally dropped their friendly mask. Jinwoo clutched the data device containing everything he had copied from the alien computers. Taemin carried genetic samples that proved the Council's crimes against dozens of extinct species. Yuri led them through the underground maze she had memorized during her secret explorations. They reached the spaceport just as Council security forces surrounded the complex. But Yuri had planned for this. She led them to a small maintenance ship used for routine repairs on the larger vessels. "Can you fly this?" Taemin asked as they climbed aboard. "I learned to fly human ships," Jinwoo said, studying the alien controls. "The physics should be similar." The ship lifted off just as energy weapons began firing at them from the ground. Jinwoo pushed the engines to maximum power, sending them racing toward the edge of Nexus Prime's atmosphere. "They're jamming our communications," Yuri said, working at the ship's control panel. "But I can set this ship to broadcast everything we've learned on all frequencies once we reach the edge of the system." The Council ships pursuing them were faster and better armed, but Jinwoo flew with desperation and skill that surprised even himself. He used Nexus Prime's moons as cover, diving through asteroid fields and using gravity to slingshot them toward the system's edge. "Transmission sent," Yuri announced as their ship crossed into interstellar space. "Earth will know everything." Behind them, the Council ships were closing in. Their small vessel had no weapons and nowhere to run, but they had accomplished their mission. The information about the Council's true nature was racing toward Earth at the speed of light. On Earth, the message arrived at Haiwan Choi's headquarters 12 hours later. The intelligence it contained was more detailed and more horrifying. than anyone had imagined. The Council hadn't just conquered hundreds of civilizations, they had turned conquest into a science, perfecting their methods over thousands of years. They've been planning our integration for over 3 centuries, Hywin told the Emergency War Council. Every aspect of human society has been studied and analyzed. They know our strengths, our weaknesses, and exactly how to destroy us. Admiral Dae-ho Kim looked at the tactical data Yuri had managed to transmit. But they made one mistake. They told us their plan before executing it. We have maybe 6 months before they realize we know the truth, President Martinez said. What can we accomplish in 6 months against an empire that's lasted 10,000 years? Admiral Kim smiled grimly. We can show them why humanity survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. We can show them what happens when you threaten Earth. The preparations that followed were unlike anything in human history. Using the alien technology they had been given, human engineers began building weapons that the Council would never expect. But the most important work was happening in secret laboratories around the world. Dr. Sunmi Kang's treatment for the alien nanobots was distributed as a new health supplement through every major pharmaceutical company on Earth. Within 2 months, most of the human population had been quietly immunized against Council mind control. Engineer Dong-hyun Im led a team that reverse-engineered Council technology to create something the aliens had never seen. They called them ghost ships, vessels that could become completely invisible to Council sensors by manipulating quantum fields around them. The Council relies on their sensors to track enemies, Dong-hyun explained. But these ships exist in quantum superposition. To their sensors will appear to be nowhere and everywhere at the same time. Dr. Min-ho Jeon worked on something even more dangerous. Using the genetic information the Council had shared during their friendship, he developed biological weapons specifically designed to target each alien species' unique biology. They gave us detailed medical information about themselves, he told Admiral Kim. They thought we were too primitive to weaponize it. They were wrong. But the most crucial development came from Captain So-young Nam, who had been studying Council psychology through intercepted communications. She discovered that their empire had a fatal weakness. The Council species have been rulers for so long that they can't imagine being defeated, she reported. Their enslaved populations have been conditioned to obey, but that conditioning breaks, down under extreme stress. If we can create enough chaos in their empire, the enslaved worlds might rebel. Commander Kyung-soo-bae took So-young's psychological analysis and turned it into a weapon. He developed propaganda programs designed to remind enslaved populations of who they used to be before the Council transformed them. Every species the Council conquered had heroes, artists, and philosophers, he explained. Those memories are buried but not destroyed. We can awaken them. The breakthrough that made everything possible came from Dr. Yoon-ji Yoon, a quantum physicist who had been studying the Council's galaxy-wide communication network. She found a way to hack into their system using their own technology. The quantum entanglement network connects every Council world, she explained. If we can access it, we can broadcast our liberation message to billions of enslaved beings simultaneously. As Earth's secret preparations continued, the Council began to notice small changes in human behavior. The nanobots they had distributed were reporting reduced effectiveness. Human leaders were making decisions that seemed less cooperative, and more independent Ambassador Veltar sent increasingly urgent reports back to Nexus Prime. The humans are developing resistance to our conditioning. Recommend acceleration of the integration timeline. The Council's response was swift and brutal. Ships that had been disguised as trading vessels suddenly revealed weapon systems. Research stations around human colonies dropped their peaceful facades and became military bases. But they were too late. Admiral Kim had been expecting this moment. Operation Silent Thunder is active, he announced to Earth's military commanders. All units to battle stations. This is not a drill. Across the solar system, human forces that had been secretly preparing for months suddenly revealed themselves. Ghost ships appeared in orbit around Council vessels. Hidden weapon platforms activated on asteroids and space stations. Most importantly, Dr. Yoonji's team successfully hacked into the Council's communication network. The message they broadcast was simple but devastating. It contained the complete truth about the Council's empire, how they conquered civilizations, what they did to enslaved populations, and proof that their victims could be free again. The message went out in hundreds of languages to thousands of worlds. For the first time in millennia, enslaved populations across the galaxy learned that they had once been free, that their current lives were a lie, and that rebellion was possible. On worlds, throughout the Council Empire, the reaction was immediate and violent. Enslaved beings who had been docile servants for generations suddenly remembered what their ancestors had been like. They rose up against their masters with fury that had been building for centuries. The Council's perfect empire began to collapse. From within, and at the center of the chaos was a small blue planet whose people had just declared war on the oldest civilization in the galaxy. Earth's brutal revenge was about to begin. The war began with silence. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic Council's communication network went dark. Across hundreds of worlds, enslaved populations had destroyed the quantum transmitters that kept them connected to their masters. The Council's perfect empire was suddenly blind and deaf. Admiral Dae-Ho Kim stood on the bridge of humanity's first ghost ship, watching Council vessels drift helplessly in space around Earth. Their sensors couldn't detect the human fleet that surrounded them. Their weapons couldn't target enemies they couldn't see. "Begin Phase 1, Admiral Kim ordered. The first strike wasn't against the Council ships. It was a rescue mission. Captain Jae Sung Lim led a fleet of ghost ships toward Nexus Prime, where Yuri Song and the other human prisoners were being held. But this rescue would be different from anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of trying to sneak in quietly, the human fleet announced their arrival by destroying every weapon platform in the system. Council defense forces found themselves fighting invisible enemies that struck without warning and vanished before they could respond. "This is impossible," the Prime Arbiter said, its crystalline form flickering with confusion in the Council's emergency chamber. "No species has technology advanced enough to hide from our sensors." But the humans weren't just using advanced technology. They were using the Council's own arrogance against them. For thousands of years, the Council had been so successful that they had stopped expecting real resistance. Their military tactics were designed for controlling enslaved populations, not fighting determined enemies. On Nexus Prime, Yuri Song heard the explosions getting closer to the underground complex, where she and hundreds of other prisoners were held. She had been planning an escape for months, using skills the Council didn't know she possessed. When the lights went out and the energy fields holding the prison cells failed, Yuri was ready. She led the human prisoners through the maze of corridors, while alien prisoners from dozens of other species followed them toward freedom. But Yuri had one more mission to complete. In the deepest part of the complex was the Council's main data center, containing records of every atrocity they had committed over 10,000 years. She fought her way through panicking guards and reached the quantum computers. "Recording final. Testimony," she said into her communicator as she downloaded the data. "This is Yuri Song, speaking for every species the Council has murdered, enslaved, or destroyed. Today we bear witness to their crimes. Tomorrow, we will have justice." The data she transmitted would be broadcast across the galaxy, showing every surviving civilization exactly what the Council had done. But more importantly, it would prove that resistance was possible. Captain Jae Sung emerged from the underground complex, leading almost 1,000 freed prisoners from dozens of species. Behind them, Nexus Prime burned as its enslaved population finally turned against their masters. But the real war was happening across the galaxy. Dr. Minho Jian's biological weapons had been deployed to Council homeworlds, targeting the genetic markers that distinguish the ruling class from their enslaved populations. The weapons were designed to be completely harmless to the enslaved beings, but deadly to their masters. Commander Kyung-Soo Bae's psychological warfare was even more effective. The broadcast's awakening suppressed memories worked faster than anyone had expected. On world after world, enslaved beings remembered their real names, their original cultures, and the families the Council had torn apart. The rebellion spread like a virus through the Council's empire, Species that had been docile servants for centuries became warriors overnight. They used stolen council weapons against their former masters. They destroyed the facilities where their children were being transformed into obedient drones. Engineer Donghyun Im's ghost ships appeared at critical battles throughout the galaxy, turning the tide in favor of the rebels. The Council's military forces, designed to intimidate rather than fight, crumbled when faced with enemies they couldn't see or predict. Dr. Yoon Ji-yoon coordinated the quantum communication network that kept the rebellion synchronized. For the first time, enslaved species could talk to each other directly, sharing tactics and encouraging each other to keep fighting. But it was Dr. Soo-jin Park who delivered the killing blow. Working with genetic samples from every council species, she created a virus that would strip away the genetic modifications that made the ruling class different from their enslaved populations. They made themselves into gods by changing their DNA, she explained to Admiral Kim. This virus will make them mortal again. They'll become the same as the beings they enslaved. The virus spread through the Council's leadership faster than they could develop countermeasures. Within weeks, the beings who had ruled the galaxy for millennia found themselves powerless, their enhanced abilities gone, their technological advantages useless. The final battle took place not in space, but in the Council's great chamber on Nexus Prime. The Prime Arbiter, its crystalline form now dull and cracked, faced a tribunal of representatives from every species the Council had wronged. Yuri Song, now bearing scars from her captivity, but still standing proud, read the charges. You are accused of genocide against 347 species. You are accused of enslaving billions of sentient beings. You are accused of destroying entire civilizations for your own benefit. We brought order to the galaxy, the Prime Arbiter said, its voice weak without the technological enhancements that had once made it sound godlike. We ended wars, prevented conflicts, created peace. You created slavery, Yuri replied. You called it peace because your victims were too broken to fight back. Admiral Kim stood with representatives from dozens of newly liberated species. The question now is what to do with you. Some wanted revenge. Some wanted the Council leaders executed immediately. Others wanted them enslaved as they had enslaved so many others. But it was Dr. Soo-jin Park who proposed the final judgment. They will live, she said. But they will live as equals, not as rulers. The genetic modifications that made them superior have been removed. The technologies that gave them power have been destroyed. They will spend the rest of their lives working to rebuild what they destroyed. The decision was unanimous. The Council leaders would live, but they would spend their remaining years helping their former victims rebuild their civilizations. They would work in the ruins they had created with their own hands until every damaged world was restored. But the greatest change came to the galaxy itself. The quantum communication network that had once coordinated oppression now connected free worlds in a new alliance. Species that had been enemies or strangers learned to work together as equals. Earth became the center of this new federation, not because humans demanded leadership, but because they had proven something important, that resistance was always possible, that freedom was worth fighting for, and that even the oldest and most powerful empires could fall when faced with beings who refused to surrender. Hye-won Choi, now older and wearing the scars of the war, stood in the memorial built for the civilizations the Council had destroyed. Each extinct species had a monument, with their art, their music, and their stories preserved for future generations. We couldn't save them, she said to Admiral Kim as they walked among the memorials, but we made sure they won't be forgotten. And we made sure it will never happen again, Admiral Kim replied. The galaxy was free, but the price had been terrible. Hundreds of billions had died during the uprising. Entire star systems had been destroyed in the fighting. The Council's empire had left scars that would take generations to heal, but for the first time in 10,000 years, every being in the galaxy had a choice about their own life. Children could grow up to become whatever they dreamed of becoming. Artists could create without fear of censorship. Scientists could explore knowledge without restrictions. And in the ruins of what had once been the Council's greatest stronghold, Yuri Song established a school where young beings from across the galaxy could learn the most important lesson humanity had to teach: that freedom was not something you were given, but something you had to fight for every single day. The Galactics. Council was left wordless not just because they had been defeated, but because they had been forced to witness something they thought was impossible. They had seen enslaved beings choose freedom over safety, courage over comfort, and hope over despair. Humanity's brutal revenge had not been about destruction. It had been about liberation, and that, more than any weapon, was what had brought down the oldest empire in the galaxy.